You're live, everyone.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Judy Peterson, and I am the Public Information Officer for the Fairfax County Park Authority. Tonight we are beginning our public process for the Braddock Park Master Plan Revision. And this is the first in a series of public meetings in which we hope to educate you about our planning process, discuss the park's history, the current amenities, and as well as the potential for the future. Most importantly, we're going to be asking for your ideas and your concerns and to hear your voices to find out what's on your mind. Let me begin by introducing some of our guests this evening. We have Supervisor Pat Harity, and we have Park Board Member Mike Thompson. We also have a large number of members of our planning team. Stephanie Leadham, who is the Director of Planning and Development Division for the Park Authority. We have Anna Bentley, who is the Manager of Park Planning. We also have Ryan Stewart, who is the Chief of Longrange Planning. We have planners Adam Wynn, and we also have some folks from our Park Operations Division. We also have Brian Laws, who is our Operations guy for the Park Services Division. And then we have a whole slew of folks behind the scenes who are making all the magic happen behind the curtain. So if I have left anybody out, send me something on the chat, and we'll make sure that we don't miss anybody. It's now my pleasure to roll with the program, as they say, and to introduce Springfield District Supervisor Pat Harity for some welcoming remarks.
Yes, I just want to say welcome to everybody, and thank you for participating in this process. And that's what this is about, listening to you. So we want to hear your comments and your thoughts as we share a little bit about the history of the park and where it's been and where it might be going. All of our parks are important, but this one's particularly important to me. It's right around the corner from my house on Little Rocky Run, so it's. I'm going to be keeping a good eye on this, and please take the time to comment. We do want to hear from you, and we want to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, but thank you for everybody for joining virtually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I now want to ask for comments from Mike Thompson, who is our Springfield District Park Authority Board member.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. Braddock Park is an important park to a lot of our community, and we look forward to actively engaging with all of you and getting your feedback. I also want to take a minute and just remind you that there is a Park Authority bond on the ballot in the election this fall. And many of you, as you go to vote over the next few weeks, I'm hoping you'll consider voting for that bond. That bond is a central part of the resources the Park Authority uses for resource stewardship, for new park development, for renovation and upgrades to our existing parks, and a land acquisition so that we can meet the many needs of the strategic program that the Park Authority has laid out, and to try and meet our community's desires for upgrades at places like Braddock Park and other locations. If you consider that and give us your feedback tonight, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in just a few minutes, you're going to hear a presentation about the park, and Doug Tipsworth, who is our project manager, is going to give us that. And I also want to mention that Michael Perez, who is with the supervisor's office, he is with us virtually tonight. This is the first in a series of outreach opportunities as we work together towards the development of a master plan revision for this park. Every single one of you is going to play a really vital role in getting a plan that not only addresses current issues and plans, but what it's going to look like in the future. So tonight we're going to explain in depth how it is that you can participate during our public comment session and our question period. We're also going to hear from our planning team with a presentation that looks at what's happening today and gives a schedule and talks about Braddock Park of the past. And then we're going to open up the virtual floor and allow you to be part of the conversation. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do that, because it's not as easy as it used to be. It's a little bit more complex. And I think it sounds a little bit more complex, but we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that we can hear everybody tonight. We're also going to be posting a survey link on the last slide of our presentation. You may actually see it on the public input face right now, but it's not live. We're going to make it live at the end of the program so that you'll have the opportunity to use the information we're going to put forth tonight. We'll ask you to take a look at it and to participate if you so choose. We also hope that you'll give us your email. If you go to the webpage about this revision process, there is a subscription opportunity there. You can also put your email into the chat. We won't be using, it's not a requirement if you don't want to, if you want to participate. And then, of course, you can always send it to Park Mail. We'll be glad to take that. So a couple of housekeeping items for this evening. This meeting is being recorded, and we will place a summary of the meeting online, hopefully in the few days following tonight's meeting. And I am required to say that the reason we are holding this meeting virtually is due to the pandemic. We do ask that you mute yourself during the meeting and hold questions to the end. We're going to accept questions and comments in two ways this evening. You can either put your question right into the chat, and I'll be glad to read it, and we'll get a response that way, or via audio comments. And we would ask that any comments be germane to the topic at hand, and we will limit them to 3 minutes. I believe most people, if you can't see it now, you will see it. There'll be a little timer. We got out our egg timer, just in case anybody wants to be verbose this evening. So now for the complex instructions on how to participate, and I promise we're going to go through these a couple of times, and it's also going to be a slide to help you. And we want to make sure everybody can do this, but how you can join in the conversation for the duration of this meeting, we'll be accepting comments and questions in the public input chat box. You can leave us your email address there. Again, the email will be available to us, but we're not going to publicly post that. And should you wish to dial in and speak to us over the phone, the call number is located right above the video feed, and that number, 855-925-2801. And then you enter the code, which is right above that, which is 6608. Then once you dial in, you're going to hear a recorded message that's going to ask you to press star for more options. If you want to join the speaker queue, press option number 3. And then you'll get into the speaker queue, and it's going to allow you to listen to the meeting at the same time. Now, I do need to also tell you that there's a bit of a delay, so it can be confusing if you're listening to two things at once. So you might want to step away from your computer because there is that delay. I told you this was going to be complicated. When your turn in the queue comes up to speak, we'll let you know that we're ready for your call, and you'll be prompted that it's then your turn. When it is your turn, just state your name, and we'll be glad to take your comments at that time. And again, I will go over this again, and most of this will be on a slide in front of you. All right. It is now my pleasure to welcome our presenter, landscape architect Doug Tipsworth, for our presentation.
Thank you, Judy. Hannah is the okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you, everybody. This is a agenda of tonight's presentation. Thank you for the introductions, Judy, and the welcoming remarks. The master plan presentation is the portion of that I will be presenting tonight. And just to reiterate what Judy had said, the master plan presentation, I'm going to be providing four portions of the presentation. I'm going to discuss the master planning process and schedule. Then I'm going to talk about the Braddock Park master plan itself, and I'm going to focus on the park's past and its background, what the park is like today, and in the future that we hope that you all can help us create. Then, as Judy said, we will go into a facilitated public comment period with questions and answers. And then please stick with us, because right after that, we would like to allow everybody to take our public survey. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I'm going to first talk about the process itself. Next slide. So before I can talk about our process, I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are. Fairfax County Park Authority at a glance. We have 428 parks, 324 miles of trail, 23,300 plus acres of land, and 17,754,788 total annual visitations. Next slide, please. Our Park Authority mission goal aligns pretty closely with what our primary guiding principles are. We strive to inspire a passion for parks. We are always trying to meet changing recreational needs. We advance park system excellence. We try to be great environmental stewards. We like to promote healthy lifestyles. We're always trying to strengthen and foster partnerships, and we are always trying to be equitable and inclusive with what we do. Next slide. Our Park Authority Board is our governing body. It is comprised of 12 members who are appointed by our Board of Supervisors. There's one representative of the 9 supervisory districts and 3 members at large. Next slide, please. So what is a park master plan? It is a written report and a conceptual development plan. It is comprised of these 2 documents. They clearly define what the park's design goals are and objectives. They document the site's history and its conditions. They set expectations and they inform financial decisions as we move forward. They require the approval of the Park Authority Board. Next slide. So we would ask ourselves, why are master plans important? Well, they are very important documents for us because they clearly defined land uses within the parks. They address the recreational needs of an always changing population. They protect valuable natural and cultural resources. They establish our long-term vision, and they assist us in our prioritization. They are developed through a public process, and they help set community goals and expectations. Next slide. So our master planning process it's a public-driven process, and if there's anything important to take away from this slide, it's the 3 blue bubbles, which represent the 3 public meetings that are going to take part throughout this process. We're at the very first public information meeting. So up until now, we've initiated our project. We've done in-house data research and data collection. Then we've had an announcement period to get us to this point today. At the conclusion of this meeting, we will have a 30-day survey, and we're getting that public input from you at the conclusion of this meeting. Then we'll go back and we'll develop designs and concepts based on the input you give us. Then we'll announce again, and we'll have what is called a public comment meeting. And that is the chance for us to present comments to you that were concepts to you that were derived by the input that we received from you. So what your comments were, your emails, your survey results, everything that we got from you, we would put together concepts and present that to you for another round of public comments. Then we would refine the design, and we'd start the process again of announcing it, so that we could then have our final meeting and present to you one more time what we believe the master plan is per all of the input we've received. Next slide. So this is a little bit of a reiteration of that process I just showed you, except it shows a schedule moving forward. As I mentioned, we're now at the public information meeting. We will, at the conclusion of this meeting, we'll open a 30-day period for an online survey. That period will be open for you to take the survey, send me any emails if you have any questions, give me any additional input. And then, as I said, we will come up with and develop our concepts based on that input. We're looking at another meeting in late January, and then our third meeting would be in June, and we would hope to get our Park Authority's board approval in July of 2021. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to talk about the master plan and the park and talk a little bit about its history and its background. Next slide. So a little bit of the background of the site. It was agricultural land originally, and it was acquired by the Park Authority in 1974. It's located at the junction of Braddock Road and Union Mill Road, 2 miles southeast of the historic town of Centerville. It resides in Fairfax County's Pohick Planning District, and it's part of the Springfield Supervisors District. And the park itself was first constructed between 1983 and 1984. Next slide. So I would like to take a look at what the original goals and priorities were of the first master plan that was approved in 1981. The first master plan objectives were to provide a variety of active and passive recreational activities. There was a large emphasis on active sports being the priority. To provide adequate parking for these activities. It was to preserve the western portion of the site as a resource management area. And then there was to be a social plaza at the center of the park. Next slide. So the master plan, as it was approved in 1981, was to have a combination of active recreational facilities, 6 softball fields, 1 rectangular ball field for soccer, football, lacrosse, and other activities, a batting cage, picnic areas, tennis courts, volleyball courts. There were to be walking and running trails around the perimeter of the park, 3 large on-surface parking lots, the social plaza at the center of the park, and that was included a restroom facility, concession stands, tot lots, game tables. And then in 1997, we amended this master plan to include a mini golf at the course at the northern edge of the site, and that was added in the 1997 master plan. We also added a open play area in the southeastern corner that was previously an equestrian area, and this was converted to what's called an open play area, which is essentially an open lawn area, unprogrammed. All sorts of activities can happen in that space. Next slide. So the social plaza that I referred to at the center, the intention was it would be a centrally located area at the park's nexus. It would be mostly passive recreation. It would have paved area for large foot traffic, and it was to be an area that could provide food and water, a place for restroom, shade, and safety. And there was also to be in a vehicular drop-off area. Next slide. So now that we've looked a little bit about what the past master plan was to be, I'd like to just look at what now we have as a park today. Next slide. So Braddock Park today is, as it was originally intended, a sports-focused recreation facility. Directly to the south is Centerville High School, which was constructed in 1988. And to the east is Twin Lakes Golf Course, which was constructed in 2001. The mini golf course that was incorporated in 1997 was actually, the lease expired in 2018 and it was removed. And then adjacent to the property is the Little Rock Run watershed to the east, and to the west, and the Johnny Moore Creek to the east. Next slide. So the park today has 3 main primary park structures. There's a picnic shelter, a restroom facility, which was constructed in 1994, and there's a maintenance shed, which is an area where our park ops stages a lot of its maintenance efforts. Next slide. There are a series of recreational facilities, that 6 softball fields that are natural grass, 300-foot outfield fence. Field 7 is a rectangular field. It's synthetic turf. It was constructed in 2008. We have batting cages, which is the bell-shaped green area in the sort of central north portion of the plan. There's the open play area to the southwest, and there was what was the miniature golf area in the north, and that was, as I mentioned, removed in 2018. Next slide. There's also a series of utilities and easements that go through the park. The main easement is a 90-foot VEPCO, Virginia Electric Power Company easement that runs east to west across the center of the site. Including that, there are also 15-foot electric, water, and sanitary sewer easements that serve the restroom facility and serve the irrigation shed, batting cages, and the ball field lighting. Fields 1 through 7 are all illuminated with lighting, and the western parking lot is also illuminated, and the batting cage area is illuminated. Next slide. There are a series of paved surface parking lots, 332 spaces total, 13 ADA spaces, so a total of non-ADA and ADA spaces of 345 parking spaces. There are also a series of ADA pathways, which are the magenta-colored, the purple-colored lines. And there are a series of gravel roads that are for our maintenance crews and their trucks to maintain all the ball fields. Next slide. There are also topography and soils throughout the site, and the topography of the site is mostly level. The ball fields all are terraced, and there are some extreme slopes that are greater than 20%. Those are the areas identified in orange, which are rather steep slopes. And I provided 2 photographs that give you sort of a sense of what those slopes look like. To develop these areas may require extensive cut fill, maybe walls, and additional grading. Also, throughout the site, there are naturally occurring asbestos soils. These are asbestos soils are a naturally occurring layer of bedrock. That is 2 to 5 feet below the surface, and these are important to point out because any development of deep excavation would require some disturbance of these soils, similar to what happened when we installed the restroom facility. And there are just a series of preventative construction safety methods that we are required to do when this occurs. It is a normal procedure, and it is an area throughout Fairfax County where these soils occur, but we do have pockets of it within this site. Next slide. The hydrology of the site incorporates surface drainage and subsurface drainage from inlets and from the ball field's subsurface drainage. These drainage lines are incorporated with the impervious surface of the parking lot, and that impervious surface of the parking lot drains into the stormwater management areas. And those 2 stormwater management areas are the cyan-colored areas, and there are 2 photos of those as well. These are required facilities to maintain the impervious runoff that comes from the parking lots. We also have, as I mentioned, a drainage divide through the center of the park, and any surface drainage would head towards the Little Rocky Run drainage area and the Johnny Moore Creek drainage areas. Next slide, please. We also have vegetation across the site. As I mentioned, there is along the western side, a resource management area, and this is a area of protected forest that we are protecting and keeping as a natural amenity. There are also natural vegetated buffers around the perimeter of the site that we are maintaining for visual buffer purposes. And then there are 2 wildflower meadows, one at the center of the site and one where the miniature golf area used to be. Next slide. So now that we've looked at the layers of all of the components of the site, we can look at we can do a summary of the opportunities and the constraints. And so by layering all those different natural and physical elements up, we see our constraints being that we have these existing facilities, parking lots, utility and infrastructure that need to remain intact. We also have the resource management area and tree buffer areas, and we have our steep slope topography. So when you layer all those elements up, you see where our opportunities are, and those are the yellow areas. These are the undeveloped areas of the site where we can start to consider maybe how we can add more amenities to the park and revise the master plan and make improvements to the park itself. We have 5.32 acres of undeveloped area available of an overall 60-acre park. We also can start to consider how to improve the circulation of the park and improve ADA accessibility within the park. Next slide. So now that we've looked at what the park is today and we've determined where we have opportunities, we can now move forward and look at the park's future. Next slide. So if you recall in the bubble diagram process that I showed earlier, leading up to this meeting, we did a series of research and data collection. And that included the site analysis that I just went through. That was the site as it exists today and all of its elements layered up and identifying the opportunities and the constraints. We also have reviewed the current master plan, and we would like to revisit the original goals and opportunities of that master plan. We've also done our agency's long-range planning efforts, and we do that to determine what the public's needs are the needs being met. I've also done a series of stakeholder interviews. These are interviews with different organizations that use the park, and it was with an effort to better understand the success of the current park's programs and its partnerships. And then last but not least, we're going to engage in a community's public survey, and that would, of course, be at the conclusion of this meeting. And this is to determine the new facilities and start to think about how we can use these areas and what the new needs and desires might be. Next slide. So reviewing the master plan, looking at the master plan as it was originally approved in 1981 and what was built, we have what was constructed were all of the ball fields, the surface parking lot, the batting cages, the restroom facility, the picnic area, and the tennis courts were not constructed, but there were tennis courts constructed as part of the Centerville High School to the south, and those are open to the public through an agreement with the Park Authority. What was not constructed was the central parking lot, the multi-use court, the social plaza that was going to include a concession stand area, a tot lot, a multi-use game court. And then we also did not ever finalize the perimeter walkways that would have been intended for walking and jogging. Next slide. As I mentioned, we also, in our planning department, do long-range planning, and we look at our needs assessment and what our service level standards are. And some of the things that we've identified from our needs assessment as very popular, much desired amenities, walking and jogging loop trails have always been something that have, through studies in our needs assessment and surveying as part of our needs assessment, very popular, very much desired in our parks. We also have reviewed the service level standards for this planning district, and we have indicated there is a need for additional playgrounds. We have, as a countywide effort, done research and done a dog park study, and there is additional insight that there is potential need for dog parks throughout the county. And then we have pickleball, which is a popular trend that is on the rise in Fairfax County. That is also a possible consideration for incorporating in the master plan. Next slide. And then, as I mentioned, I conducted stakeholder meetings, and I interviewed all of the organizations that you currently use the park. And these interviews are an opportunity to review the success of the current programs and partnerships that we currently have with these organizations. And it's an opportunity to evaluate the future needs and desires that we potentially could consider for the park moving forward. Next slide. And then, as I've mentioned, at the conclusion of this meeting, we'd like to launch a 30-day public survey. And the things that we would like to know and understand better are who's using our park, what are the park users doing in the park, where do they live, when are they using the park, and how are they using the park, and how long does it take them to get to the park? And then, most importantly, what could we do to improve the park? And this is and that's where we need your input to really understand that last item the best. Next slide. So, reviewing all the things that I just outlined, the long-range planning and the stakeholder meetings and the site analysis, we can begin to think about what are some ideas that we could consider in this survey that we're about to release to the public. And these are just ideas, but there are well-informed ideas, and there is potentially maybe more parking and better circulation throughout the park, or perhaps more sidewalks and trails for better connectivity and to provide more exercise to the park users. Maybe we can incorporate new facilities and amenities such as the playground, or maybe the dog park, or pickleball or volleyball, or outdoor fitness areas. Improvements to the existing facilities are also something we could consider. Concession stands and outdoor dining areas, perhaps more seating opportunities, or perhaps we maintain the natural amenities we have and incorporate new ones, perhaps new habitat areas, pollinator gardens, more shade for trees. And if shade is greatly desired, perhaps more covered pavilions for picnics or parties or social functions, or place to stay cool in between athletic events. And these are all things that we would like you to consider when you're going to take the survey at the conclusion of the meeting. Next slide. So that concludes the presentation. I've shared the process that we typically go through. I've shared the history of the park and its past, what the park is today, and what the potential future of the park could be. And we would like your input and your assistance to figure out what that should be. So I will turn the floor back to Judy at this point.
Thank you, Doug. And I just want to say that although Doug is a seasoned professional, this is his first master plan with the Park Authority. So nicely done, Doug. It's a great way to start. By the way, so we're going to go through some of the how do you talk to us again. And if you have any questions, just let us know. But if you are watching us through public input and you don't see the chat box, take a moment to refresh your browser and adjust your screen. And you should see the chat box where you can enter comments and questions. So I already have a couple of comments, but let me go through what you have to do to get in one more time for those who may have missed it. And of course, I would invite you to take a look at the information on the screen. So we'll be accepting comments and questions about the topics tonight. and feel free to use the chat box next to the video. You can leave your email if you wish to receive updates about this project. That email will not be posted publicly to the chat box. If you want to call in, then you can dial the number, again, that's on the screen, 855-925-2801, and enter the code 6608. Press star for more options when you're prompted, and then press 3 to join the speaker queue. You can continue listening into the meeting while you're in the waiting queue. And when it's your turn, a pre-recorded voice on the phone will tell you that you're about to enter. And then there'll be a slight pause while the system gets you connected, and then you'll be able to speak. Okay? So, with that having been said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me look at a couple of these comments that have come through. What about the walking, running trails? Could you please point out those locations? Doug?
So in the original master plan, they were around the perimeter of the site. I think I showed an overlay of before of the color of the master plan and a black and white of the park today, and you really saw where those occurred around the perimeter of the site. They do not exist today.
Is there something that we could show them in terms of one of the slides that we've already looked at?
If you go to slide, and if you go to slide 14,
all right, 1 second. Slide 14 coming right up. And here we are.
so if you look at the perimeter of the plan itself, you can see there's a buff brownish tan colored line, which represented what the original thoughts were for running trails. And the original thought was there maybe could be exercise stations or stretching stations or places that could be sequentially spaced along that path. And that path would go around all the ball fields and sort of meet back up at the parking lots. And those are not there today, but there is certainly a place where they could be incorporated in the plan if it was something that the public determined was seen as a vital component of the original master plan that perhaps would be a good thing to include in the new one moving forward.
I have another comment. This is from the chairman of the Park Authority Board. He's trying to get me into trouble here. Great presentation, and please vote for the 2020 park bond. That's a quote. I'm not actually advocating. Okay. Stacy would like us to talk a little bit more about the accessibility issues and ADA in this new plan. That's extremely important, in her opinion, that parks be accessible to everyone. Is there somebody who would like to tackle that?
Sure, Doug Tipsword, I can take that. Hannah, could you go to slide 21? And while Hannah's looking for that slide. So as the park exists today, there are paved pathways. There are a combination of gravel pathways and paved pathways. The paved pathways are the magenta colored lines, and those are the ADA accessible pathways. They do provide an accessible path to every ball field, to the restroom facility, to cages. But what you would see from this is it's not always the shortest route to get from one place to another. So one thing to certainly consider in a new plan moving forward is more trails and more pathways to ADA pathways, of course, that could start to connect the site a little better and enhance the ADA accessibility. Another thing that we could consider that was in the original master plan was there was a parking lot that was closer to the what was called the Central Plaza, which is where currently there is a restroom facility. And in the original master plan, there was some parking and some vehicular accessibility that would allow somebody to be dropped off at the center of the park, which you currently do not have today.
Thank you. And just going back to when we were talking about walking and running trails, there was a comment that said those would be great. We have another question, and this is from Bill. This is a critical park, especially for adult and senior softball. It would be great to upgrade those fields to synthetic turf for extended play in the fall and to be in a position to hold women and men tournaments. I've spent thousands of hours on those fields. Anybody like to talk about the potential for conversion to synthetic turf?
Sure, Judy. This is Doug Tipsword. There's always the potential for that, and that is very good input. Thank you for providing that input. We absolutely, if you can even put that in the survey as a preference, that would, or something that's important to you also, please put that in the survey. As I said, the ball fields certainly need improvement, whether they're synthetic turf or even natural grass. But there's always a possibility and a chance for something like that.
Judy, if I could say one thing real quickly, this is Mike Thompson. I think it's also important to understand that right now, while we are talking about the master plan, this looks at what the park could be. It does not necessarily speak to how we would be able to fund all of the improvements. This is the first step in the process of identifying what improvements we should make as we are then able to consider the funding options. So that, there can be a time lag between the two.
That's an excellent point, Mike. Thank you for that. And if you look back at our previous master plans, we had one in 1981, and that had improvements that were made over time. And then we had a modification made in I think it was 97, and again improvements. But these master plans represent what the end goal could potentially be. But as Mike said, funding would have to dictate what we can and can't do as we move forward. But your input helps us understand where you feel the priorities are.
Judy, you're muted.
You'd think after 7 months of this, I'd get this straight. I apologize. Bill Bowie, the chairman, is back on the chat, and he says, thank you to everybody who is participating this evening. We also, if we could go back to the slide that explains to people how they can participate, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate. And I think it's important to remind everybody that this is really our first initial outreach. The planning process allows for sort of a graduated opportunity for increased input as the plan takes on a little bit more form and format. So we're also going to allow a 30-day comment period following this. So I do think that we're off to a good start. All right, we have a couple more comments here. Can you go back to the field designations? This looks like a lot of baseball fields. What about other sports like soccer? Doug?
Yes, sorry, Doug Tipsword here. And if you want to go to slide, well, I'm not sure which slide the individual referring to the fields is referring to, but if you want to go to slide 19, we had an original master plan that had 6 softball fields and 1 rectangular soccer field. And then that is what was built. And so this slide is what was built. And those are all the fields that were in the original master plan. If you feel strongly that another ball field is heavily desired, we can certainly explore that. There is one area in the plan, it's in the center there where the wildflower meadow is, where you could potentially explore another ball field, but it's going to be challenging because there's a lot of grade change there. But I don't want to discourage that feedback. Please put something like that in the survey if that's what you feel strongly about. But I just wanted to point out the ball fields that are in the plan are not proposed ball fields. They are what is there today.
I would also just pipe in again. It's Mike Thompson. I would again pipe in here and just say that not very far away from this park is Patriot Park, and we'll be soon working on the master plan for Patriot Park, which, because of some road issues, is going to probably not end up with the diamond fields that were originally planned there, and may offer an opportunity for more than the 3 rectangular fields that are currently in the master plan to be potentially built there. We have through the needs assessment the Park Authority has done, we have a need for rectangular fields. And as a father of daughters who play lacrosse and field hockey and soccer, the rectangular fields are very important as well. But we need to try and balance out the community's overall needs and continue to look for options where we're able to add rectangular fields as well. But that may not be this specific park.
Terrence, we thank you for your questions and your observations. Do we have anybody who is trying to come in on the phone or via audio at this point? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, not that we're aware of. And I would encourage you, if there are any other comments or questions, to go ahead and get them in so that we can hear from you. In the meantime, I would maybe ask Doug to give us some sense of what comes next in terms of the master planning process.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Anna, if you could go back to slide 10, we had a schedule that we showed everybody, and this is the best way to sort of show what the steps are moving forward and actually provide some tangible dates to help set some expectations. So right now we're 1st of October, and we're at our public information meeting, which is our first virtual meeting. At the conclusion of this meeting, we'd like to launch our survey, and we're gonna help you, direct you to how to do that once we're done with our questions and answers. That'll be a 30-day period, and when we conclude that 30 days, myself and other Park Authority staff are all going to take all the input we've got, and we're going to compile it, and we're going to start to go through it, and we're going to take another look at some of our other planning efforts that I mentioned previously in the presentation, and we're going to look at the site analysis that I walked you through slide by slide, and we're going to start to develop some concepts, ways of incorporating some of the things that you, the public, have expressed a lot of strong interest in, that you see as priorities, and ways that you would like to see us revise the master plan moving forward and to set expectations for the future.
Thank you. And I guess I'm going to put out the call for the last comments of the evening. We're not going to drag this out if we've answered the questions. Terrence did add, thank you, I'm new to the area and this is very good information. So what I'd like to just say at this point is there will be 30 days for the survey. There will also be 30 days for public comment. You can get information on the website. You can just go to the Park Authority website, put in Braddock Park at the top and search it, and it will come up. And I think you're going to put up another slide that's going to talk about the survey just a little bit. We really do want to hear from you, and we're going to be pushing this out on our social media platforms. There's people who perhaps couldn't join us tonight or didn't think about it. We want to be sure that that they have an opportunity to give us their thoughts. I mean, this is the best time. So take the public survey, and the instructions for how to do that are here. And somebody's asking, can we post the survey link in the public chat so that it directly links to the page? I guess I would say if we can, let's go ahead and do that. We want to make it as easy as possible. Please continue to check the Braddock Park webpage for project updates. Again, if you want to send us an email, you can send that through Park Mail. You can put it in the chat. Carrier pigeon, whatever works, we want to hear from you. If you still have questions, send us an email, and that would be at parkmail@fairfaxcounty.gov, and we'll get you your information. The survey is there now. I love quick response. There we go. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and so what I would add to that is we have, if I believe, and I'm not seeing what the screen that everybody else is seeing, but I believe if you scroll down below the video you're watching, there should be a way to click on the survey and launch it. And feel free to start if you'd like to start taking the survey. We'd love your input.
All right. Are there any words from either Mike or the supervisor before we close out this evening?
No, the only thing I would add is that feel free to take the survey link and email it to folks in your community, include it in homeowners association newsletters, emails to involved parents and athletic and other kinds of folks. That this is something where the more public feedback we can get, especially at the front end, the better we're able to meet the community needs.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that. I'll put it in my newsletter and share it on social media, but get the word out to people so we can get as much input as we can.
All right.
And thank you all for a great presentation.
Thank you. And to everybody out there, please stay safe. Please vote if you haven't. And good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you to the Park Authority staff. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, everybody.